Okay, welcome back to the House of Discovery. Again, I'm in HitLab New Zealand and we have a room change. It's a new setup. So you can see the title being just laid up over there on the back. And yeah, we're going to look at a VR game. Let's just call it VR game for now because it's, well, we don't know. We're going to look into it. And it's coming from the company Claw. And remember that because they are the ones who made the VR game virtual reality for the Oculus Go platform a couple years ago, and that was really successful. A futuristic dystopian themed game about a very deep buried story, and people love it. And now they come up with this new title called the Under Presence. It's from for the new platform for the Oculus Quest. And then, because it's $6, it means a lot of new things to play. And it has been featured on the Oculus blog back in March this year. And there was a trailer and I watched it, but no one really got an idea what it was back then. So I just waited until last week they released the game. And I purchased it on the first day and then just keep playing it. Since so far, I've been a couple of hours into the game. I haven't finished it, but I'd like to share my first impressions because it's really mind-blowing and it's so different from any other VR game I have been playing before. And I really like to share to you guys because I just want everyone to know like what it feels like to play a VR game or VR title like this. Yeah, so let's just get diving. So before we start, I also want to point out that as a VR game designer, a researcher into this area, I always look at a VR gameplay in different aspects of how the game is being consisted and composed into the complete thing. And I'm going to share my several-hour VR gameplay into the Under Presence in the same way. So we're going to look at different aspects and share my thoughts from different point of view. And yeah, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the player experience or the game experience that I have so far. So for this game, you started with an onboarding experience where in this all dark place that you are given a hand and then move on to get into the game world. And well, I have to say, because people are going to link it up, because this dark, muddy environment feels really like the Death Stranding scene that I've been seeing, like the BT want to draw you over. Just can't stop thinking about that. And then you goes into this central theater. I think it's the hub of the gameplay where you're gonna have all the stories from this to that and all across this theater place, and that's the central hub. And then you have a tour guide, and very interesting because there's this masked man, or they call it MC, as he introduced himself. So he will be telling you all kinds of things. And then you guys gonna have this conversation because the tour guide is gonna talk to you and introduce some part of the story like during the conversation. And then another major piece of the game is that you will be seeing things happening, experience a lot of things on the ship. So this is a ship they call the Akiman, is the name of a ship. And then you can see people happening on the ship as a stage, and you're gonna follow along the storyline. So that's what I all seen from a player's perspective so far. And I think the game is gonna jump back and forth in this several aspects and unfold the narrative behind it. One thing very unique and outstanding of the game that I noticed on the first time is how the locomotion is designed. So different from any other VR game that are using like teleporting or joystick walking, any other maybe trigger walking as well. This one used something they call a scrunch. So how it works is that you use your hand to drag the world as if you are dragging part of the world as a piece of cloth, and then you drag it towards yourself, you release it, you're being snapped to the new place. So you're going to notice the central part of your vision is not changing, but while the peripheral one just followed up. And it reminds me also of a science fiction, these three body, they mention like light speed ships are being driven not by any engine, but rather changing the curvature of the space. And then the space drag you along because you change its curvature. And this is just like that. Well, it's very unique. And it's the first time seeing something like this. And then you have two modes of using this scrunch, or I'll call it a warp drive. First is just you can drive yourself or move along yourself by dragging along yourself on the scene that move along by step, like this one here. Another one is that you can jump to certain anchor points, and then you kind of teleport by dragging the entire world, and you jump a very long distance. This one is not that frequently used because I think the anchor points are only given at certain place, and most of the time you're going to drag in the world towards yourself like that, and then you're going to move along in the scene, and this is the main locomotion pattern you're going to use throughout the game, or what I have so far. So since you have hands in the game, which is very unique in a dialect, and that this is a very important part, because other than you can drag the world, use this scratch to move along, you can snap your fingers. Yeah, very interesting. You can snap and just something like that. Other than telegraph, so you can snapping, and then think part of the snapping, because you can use it as clapping. I'm gonna point out that later, because you can't hit your hands like that in a game. You use the clapping to make this sound, to appraise maybe someone's performance. And also, that is part of the thing you can do is the spell, because you have this mask. I think it's a very important key part of the game that you are given, and then you can take it off. Take off the mask, and the one thing you can do is you can use the finger to do this spell thing. Another part of the mask sometimes serves as a multi-tool that you use. I think is very important to storytelling I learned so far. So one thing, you can perform some kind of spell, and then the mask serves as a ticket to goes on to the Acumen ship. So you jump from the center stage, you put on the mask as a ticket, and then it goes on to the next point. And then it serves as the spell plate, and it's also a time control. So you dissected the ship using your mask, and then like what you see right now, and you can see the different angles of the ship. Well, it's like a kind of like a God mode, because you jump into the place. And then also you use your finger to spin on the mask. It has a clock, and so you can control time. It's like I want to see the fast forward the story or go back to some part that I have missed before. So it's you enter this God mode, you can control the world, how process forward, backward, just like you can control time. So the mask also serves as that. So that's like a central piece. Working together with your hand, it becomes a very, very unique thing you're going to have in the entire narrative. Or because I've been using that several times so far, I think it's very related to a lot of stuff you can see in the game. So the other thing I want to really got impressed into is that how the storytelling elements is being laid out and structured in the game, or in the experience we have so far. You have this guide, the MC, he sometimes shows up and give you some hint or have a conversation with you and pop up out of nowhere and they give you some dialogue. And also this center stage, because not only you're going to be here and being directed to different places, or they have some kind of provisional show up, is I've seen several so far, and according to Tenderclaw, they say in the first 4 months of the gameplay, they're going to use real actors playing the provisional shows. I think I haven't encountered one of that so far, because I think if that is, they should have some kind of interaction. Well, I'm expecting to have several when I go deeper into the game, but I didn't have any so far. And also you have this time boat machine that I mentioned. You use your mask as a ticket, you goes in there and you click on different acts, you go to different part of the story. So it's like a kind of onboarding inside a boarding time already, and then you kind of see a hint of who will be there in the story, and some of information is being given, and you're going to link it up by yourself. And also on the boat, you can feel like it's an improvisational theater, because people on a boat, as if everyone has their storyline and they interact, they have a conversation, they're gonna do what they need to do, and it goes on, and you are just a bystander. I haven't got to find anything, or haven't got the chance to interact with any of the characters on the boat so far, so I'm more like a bystander. But at the same time, like what I said, I can take off my mask and then goes into this God mode, in which I can peek into different areas of the ship, and then I can use this clock to control the time. So in God mode, I am outside of both the space and the time that the story is happening on the boat. So I'm like a multi-dimensional being that I can jump outside of their time and space and pick whatever which I want, and then goes back and be in the real experience with them. It's more than those improvisational theaters we have so far, because like the Sleep No More. But I think it's a very unique part. And there also has been a onboarding or introduction period of time where you are being introduced how can interact with the boat and interact with or getting involved in the storytelling. Fortunately, I haven't got a screen recording of that, but you're going to see it very clearly during the first part of the game when you start this experience. So the last thing I want to talk about is very unexpected in the game. They have multiplayer interaction. So this is not something that I expected, because I think it's just like a single player narrative experience go through. But sometime in the game, when I jump out of the ship back into the stage or goes to some of the other part, I'm going to see other players similar as myself, and we can interact. So we can play this mask spells with each other, and also we can snaps, using the snaps to like communicate, because we can't talk, we don't have mouth in the game. The only way, rather than using gestures, hands, performance, and we can snap, it's like a kind of clapping, and there's definitely no conversation. And I notice people can also, or players can also, including myself and others, can grab onto the same thing. So it's like we can try to snap the things outside of others' hand, and when you're doing that snap, your hand got stretched. That is very interesting. So I think there's a lot of interaction between players that involved in the game, but it just didn't know how that gonna be interweaving with the Acumen ship's storyline. Maybe it will have something related in the future. So I will go on to see it. But I think this multiplayer interaction that somehow got introduced into the game is really unique, and then they did it very well. It's so subtle, but it gives you a lot of funny moment when you play this mask spell and some surprise stuff with others, and then people are gonna snapping or clapping to you, and you feel like, wow, that's very nice. People are seeing what I'm doing, and we do have this interaction or conversation happening, although there's no dialogue. Very, very unique. So this is what I have for the VR game so far, and I just talk about different aspects. It's just a couple hours of play into that. I think this one is very, very unique. More like provisional theater or real-time performance, emergent story, these kind of terms that I have encountered during my research and reading different kind of articles and books about the VR experience. So this one is like people have been making VR games for quite long, and a lot of that we see I can like fall into the genre of horror game or shooting game, because people want to scare you by immersive you in a VR, or because you have hands, you can shoot something, that's something we can't experience. And many of those games, you can like tell what you're going to expect from the trailer or introduction of the game. And that then goes on to say, okay, it's something what I want to buy, and I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to experience it like what is being shown on trailer. But the under present is something on the opposite side. So from the trailer, we have no idea what it was. So it's like the content creator or the maker of the VR experience, let's just call it VR experience for now, it's try to hide as much as information behind the scenes. So it's like really just not want to tell you a lot of it, but rather let yourself to go experience it. And then they put a lot of information between the small details or between the storyline, major storyline of the game. And so it's like, it's very simple from the outside, but once you go in there, it's a huge world, and there's a lot of information that the player need to find out step by step and time by time. So I think there's a lot more to see. And also I'm expecting to have that real-time human actor interaction pattern. So how can I get interactive with them? Because in that improv theater, the Sleep No More, people do choose where they're going to follow, because there are several stories happening all along the sign. And then as the audience, you have this mask on, you go here and there, you're going to choose which story you're going to follow. And sometimes the actor going to have interaction with one of the audience. It could be you, and you had a very temporary close interaction and relationship with the actor, and you become part of the story, because your reaction, your response will change how the storyline going forward. And that's how the term improvise comes about. Yeah, so that's what I have so far from the several gameplay, and that's my first impression of the Under Present from Tender Claw. And I definitely will go on, because I think there are a lot of other stuff I need to play and get well known about what the story is about. And I think, well, if you can have some like first understanding or gonna grasp idea from my introduction of or my sharing, and then you might feel like, well, I really need to try out this game, or maybe even the reason you go buy an Oculus Quest, who knows? And that will be really helpful, I think. I don't know, but it's just something really unique I want to share. Can't wait to like share my experience, and then every one of you go play it and you share your thinking, your discovery. We might have very different personal experience of the gameplay. They might personalize it on different player, who knows? And so after maybe a couple extra weeks, and after I go through the entire game, I will have another full review and talk about the entire thing, but try to at the same time not to spoil the narrative, because there might be a lot of surprise kind of stuff, and then I'm gonna left them out for yourself to try out. So into the next video, see you next time.